Welcome to On the Bench. I'm your host for this episode, Brendan Sinone. I'm joined by Chris Nee, Zach Blostein. Second time in a row. That's called a streak, boys. We're back together. Does it feel good?
Feels great.
Let's do it.
All right. Impressing, important. I said impressing, but I was trying to combine those two. Off to a great start here. The pre-show production was not great either on my end, as Zach can attest to. Zach, you want to talk about that real quick, or you just want to keep it moving?
Just keep it moving.
Keep it moving. All right. I almost just did it again. The pressing question that people want to know, Chris, did you cover your pipes? And if so, who covered them for you?
No pipe coverings here.
Unfortunate. We still got snow in our backyard. Do you?
I don't think so. I haven't been out front this morning, but I think it probably burned off yesterday.
You don't think snow? Yeah. So a week later, we're still kind of dealing with a little bit of it. Pretty cool in Tallahassee. How's the weather in South Florida, Zach? We don't care. We're just keeping it moving here. We're keeping it moving. If you didn't get snow, I don't want to talk about the weather. All right, so we got a few things to get to today. The quarterback wins are blowing. There's change with FSU's quarterback board for the 2026 class. Before we get to that, though, let's talk about a commitment that Florida State got last night from a four-star prospect in the 2025 cycle. A really nice get for FSU this late in the process, and that's Chasten Brown. He's ranked 90 grade by 24/7 Sports, similar in the composite as well. He's from Middle Georgia in the Warner Robins area. 6'7", 270 is what he's listed at, Zach. But he weighed in, Chris, at what on his FSU official visit?
6'7.5", 252 pounds.
All right, let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about Chasten Brown. It's the guy that was leaning towards UCF at one point. We know that UCF's offense
was committed.
Yeah. Was he committed? Well, I would say that was a hard lean.
He backed off when the Gus change happened at UCF.
All right, so this is a guy that UCF really liked with Gus Malzahn and her band. Now they're obviously at Florida State, and the flip or I don't know, whatever we want to call it, has occurred. Let's talk a little bit about his recruitment, Chris.
I mean, it's pretty simple here. He was committed to UCF. He really likes those two guys. FSU had been involved with him some earlier in the process, but not really heavily down the stretch. For him, proximity played a role. He likes that FSU and UCF previously were not too far from home. He's a Middle Georgia type kid. I think if another school in that immediate area came in, it would have got interesting potentially in the sense of him having more than one option. But the truth is, since early December to this point when he committed on the official visit, it's been FSU. He followed through with the commitment. He told me when I previewed his visit a couple days ago he's going to commit during the visit. So nothing surprising there. It's a long-term investment on FSU's part. He's got a very long frame, they feel like a wide enough frame to add good weight to it. Light feet, athletic, big hands. Yeah, it's a developmental offensive tackle. You take those in the high school ranks this day and age in the current climate. The key there is in 2 years, what will he look like and what will he be able to do at this level? Will he be able to play P4 football at a high level, and will he physically be in a position to do so?
I was waiting for Zach to maybe chime in with something, but it's usually how we do it.
I think I think that it's an interesting ad. I think it's pretty clear that he's a long-term play, just considering the body type and the amount of mass he has to add at the next level, considering he's only 250 pounds right now. But I find it interesting that no other schools came in late to try and make a play at him. That's usually when there's a offensive tackle body available, schools will at least inquire, and I'm sure that did happen.
He mentioned I don't know if Texas A&M offered, but he said they got involved. Vanderbilt, I believe, offered. I think there was one or two others that came in after the UCF decommitment. But he said he specifically said when he brought up Texas A&M, that's an interesting one, but it's too far from home. So I think there was a degree of it was understood that he wasn't about to hop on a plane and go somewhere else.
That makes sense.
He had taken official visits in the summertime to Pitt, Louisville. There may have been one other when I was looking at his profile earlier. So there was earlier, but I was going to ask. I did find that interesting, Zach. That really, so he decommits from UCF, and then really it's Florida State is the one school that kind of he focuses his time and energy towards. So it is super. It's a clear upside play, right? The floor is very low of what it might be. He's only been playing varsity football for 2 years, I think. He's a basketball player by trade. He's like a double guy. You're rolling the dice, but that's what you should be doing in offensive line recruiting because it's all a crapshoot, I think. So
I'm not against taking a bunch of numbers, and like no one in the country is consistently nailing O-line evaluations. It's about taking numbers and seeing which guys hit, and these are the body types that obviously tend to hit at the offensive tackle position. I mean, he's got freaky measurables. I think if he went to the NFL Combine, he'd have the longest arms in Combine history. Yeah,
37.5-inch arms. I think the record's like 36 and 7/8, so almost by like half a foot. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, as much as it's a test for Herb Hand to develop him on the football field, it's also a Josh Storms and a strength and conditioning and nutrition test. Luke, I posted this last evening. Lucas Simmons to me, and he's had some speed bumps in his career at FSU, but he was a guy who came in who needed physical development. And the expectation is that he'll have an this offseason to truly do that, where he's not dealing with an injury. He's healthy. He's able to work out. He's expected to be able to eat at the level he needs to eat to add bulk. He'll be sort of a litmus test. And he was ahead of Brown when he walked in the door at FSU. But again, he's had speed bumps in his time at FSU with regards to development. That's the key with taking body types like that. If they're built like a tackle and they can move like a tackle and do things that tackles have to be able to do, then it comes down to, can they physically be big enough to handle large ends / defensive tackles that can line up over them and cause some issues.
And he can, like, the movement skills are super interesting. Again, that basketball skill set where you see some bend to him and comfort playing in space. Like I was really intrigued watching his highlights. It's just beyond the physical development that needs to happen. We're talking about someone's going to have to gain about 50, 60 pounds. And with the arm length, like that is certainly like an aspect that's intriguing, right? But he does seem to have narrow shoulders, and so you wonder about the frame and how he can add weight, and then how does he move? Those movement skills are impressive. How does he move with additional 50 pounds? As we talk about, like there's all this variance that it could be, and then it's just like he's so green as well. Like when you watch him, hand placement is super inconsistent. You see this arm length is supposed to be this big asset for him, and it is sometimes, but it's more like this recovery. It's more when he doesn't get his hand in the right place, he's able to still win a rep because he's so long and can kind of, someone starts getting off of his body, he can go and still grab him, seal him, and create space. Same with the footwork too. It's kind of all over the place, but again, it's a guy who only played football for a couple years. It's an upside play. I like it. I'm cool with the take as long as they didn't break the bank for it. Like it's, Zach said it. You throw numbers at the problem and you try to see if you can fix it. You haven't had a true tackle in quite some time here. Maybe this guy is it. It's going to probably take a little while to figure it out, and that's okay. You just kind of know what you're getting into there. Anything else for 2025 recruiting before we talk about quarterback developments?
Zahir Mathis, who they're hot and heavy with, Mike Norvell went to see last weekend before the Eagles game that he also attended. He did not go to Michigan this past weekend. It sounds like Michigan basically said thanks, but no thanks in regards to bringing him in based on what our Michigan site has reported on that. The expectation is that he goes to Maryland this upcoming weekend. At this point, it seems to be between FSU and Maryland. We'll see if UCLA is able to reschedule him or if Virginia Tech ends up bringing him in potentially for a midweek. Those could potentially jump in the picture, but right now it seems FSU and Maryland are the ones vying for that. There's optimism on FSU's part. They've done a good job down the stretch with him.
I think I am interested to see how Maryland goes about with NIL package for him there. He's a regional recruit for them, and they were pretty aggressive in getting D.D. Holmes aboard quickly when he entered the transfer portal, and that's an FSU transfer, kind of similar, long, lengthy, different playing styles, but there's the super length-based defensive end who you're banking on, and I believe Maryland paid a pretty handsome fee to get D.D. Holmes to transfer, and so we'll see. They do the same for another regional-based defensive end in this recruiting cycle. All right, let's move it on. 2 quarterback wins are blowing. I don't know why I keep saying that. That might be the title of the podcast, to be honest. And some bad news, guys. We're not going to be able to go for the next 4 to 5 years because Brady Smigiel is decommitted from the FSU class. Not a huge surprise, Zach, right? This is one that we were kind of expecting when the coordinator change happened, or at least thought that was a possibility. The visits, some of the Twitter activity all kind of made it seem that this was going to happen. But lo and behold, 2026 quarterback is no longer in FSU's class.
Yeah, Brady Smigiel was a nice early addition for Florida State at the quarterback spot in the 26
A great one.
class.
We loved him, right? Like we were all really excited about him physically and production wise.
No, I thought he was a really good player, and I got to watch him in person against some of the other top 26 arms at one of their elite camps that they had this past summer, and he stacked up pretty well. I didn't think he was the best prospect there. They had some other guys who are now considered like 5-star talents, and I didn't think he was that, but he's definitely, I would consider him a top 100 player, and it's a big loss, right? Like from a talent standpoint. But I think the most important thing to note here is that change at the coordinator position on offense, and Gus Malzahn being the primary play caller is a big deal, and what he's looking for at the quarterback position is different from what FSU was looking for prior to his arrival. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons for, Smigiel's decommitment from FSU. Moving forward, I mean, almost immediately you saw Florida State extend 3 new offers at the quarterback position. So, obviously they had a plan for this. They were expecting this to go down, at least in the, past few days. They had kind of gotten word that this was going to take place. So they had a plan in place to go extend some new offers, and 3 went out on Sunday after the news of Smigiel's decommitment. The first was to Bowe Bentley out of Texas. He's a 4-star quarterback who started at quarterback for the first time in his career this past season during his junior year and had a monster year. We'll go more into his game in a little bit, but then they offered 2 other quarterbacks, a little bit later, in Landon Duckworth and Keisean Henderson. Landon Duckworth was a guy that Gus Malzahn was heavily recruiting when he was at UCF, and their crystal balls entered for UCF on his profile. So they were closing in on landing him at one point before things kind of fell apart there at the end of that, his tenure in Orlando. And then Keisean Henderson, I saw this guy play this, not this past weekend, the weekend before at Battle Miami. And he's a legit dude. Considered one of the top quarterbacks in the country. He's committed to Houston right now. It was they evaluated him early. He's out of Texas as well. And he's a guy that multiple big time programs have come in and offered lately. I think Georgia was one of the ones that's most noteworthy as of late. I talked to him yesterday, and his recruitment's going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, those are the 3 offers that went out. So Florida State kind of hits the reset button at the quarterback position in the 2026 class, and we can kind of get into each of their games and just our overall thoughts on this situation now.
On Brady, he's athletic enough to play for Gus, in my opinion, but I think there was an uncomfortableness between both parties with regards to whether or not he was the right guy for what they're going to do. I think Brady was unsure of that. He expressed in December that he was going to try to practice some patience and see what it looked like. They met at the very beginning of January. Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn went out to California first day they could be on the road this month, and met with Brady and Joe, his father, who's also his coach. And, I think that sort of probably a pivot point where this was going to eventually come, whether or not it was now or the spring. I think it's honestly probably a positive for both parties that they've got to the decision quickly, just because quarterback dominoes fall fast and you got to kind of move. And that's true for both parties. Brady's got to figure out where he wants to be. FSU's got to figure out what direction they want to go. Zach mentioned 3 guys, all 3 of those guys extremely athletic. In Henderson's case, he's actually ranked as the #1 athlete on our company, not even as a quarterback. So that kind of speaks to it, because he did a lot of stuff last year in 7-on that wasn't even him throwing the ball. It was him playing receiver, things like that, and he shows off the athleticism. It's
was he the one with the Davy Crockett hat?
Yes.
Yeah,
all right.
He's freakish.
Pretty cool. I'm not going to lie.
He wears that everywhere.
Duckworth is funny. He camped at FSU in 23 at their quarterback camp. I remember thinking, man, he's pretty good, but I bet he's really good in a setting where he's also able to use his legs. And here we are. And Bowe, I'm less familiar with other than watching the film yesterday when they offered. He was a guy that I hadn't really invested time with or knew about prior to. I think it's also worth considering a few of the guys that they had already offered. Mason Holtzclaw is a guy who I think in the old version of them, they would probably look a little bit more at, but he's more of a true pocket passer, so I don't think it will go that direction. Jared Curtis is probably a good enough athlete. He's also a guy not committed currently because he backed off his previous commitment. He's always been high up the board. He is considered one of the best quarterbacks in the country, but a lot of heavy hitters are very deep in that recruitment. We'll see if FSU tries to push the buttons there again. There's some other guys they've had through here at times that I think you could see them push on again because they're a good mix of a passer, but they're also athletic enough to kind of fit what it seems like they're definitely going in directionally.
Can I get your guys' thoughts on what now seems to be a bit of a development with quarterbacks that were committed or, in Luke Romanhoek's case, on campus playing, kind of having some trepidation with the Gus Malzahn offense? I mean, this is now two highly ranked quarterbacks.
There's a stigma about athleticism with it, or almost that you're going to run more than you pass. I think that's fair to say. I asked Trent Seaborn that very question 2 weekends ago when he came in for a junior day. The thing is, I thought Seaborn was very mature in his answer. He said Gus has had success with quarterbacks of a variety of type of skill sets. If they're really good runners, he's going to run them a lot. If they're really good passers, he's going to run or throw with them a lot. If they're a mix, they're going to do both. And, there's different things. But, for example, Zach interviewed Keisean Henderson last night. I wrote that story for him. Cam Newton's referenced. I think when guys think of Gus Malzahn quarterbacks, they probably go to Cam Newton. Bo Nix might be referenced as a guy he recruited, obviously. John Rice Plumlee, Nick Marshall, for those who are a little bit older. All of those have a similar thing going on. So I think, it might be a stigma. It might truthfully be true. The way to show a quarterback something is going and doing it. And Thomas Castellano is going to be the case study for year one FSU Gus Malzahn. And we all know Thomas's best trait is his legs. So I don't think it's going to help wash away that stigma, truthfully. But I also think that's what Gus wants to a degree. You look at who got offered, what they're really good at. Do I think they want them to be high-level passers? Yes, I do. But athleticism is definitely part of the pie. And, some guys are more built to be more pocket-like than running wild. And Brady's probably still, despite being a good athlete, I'm not trying to act like he's not a good athlete. He's a very capable athlete. He ran for plenty of yards at Newberry Park this past year. He's shown he has wheels. But I would still consider him more of a pocket-style passer.
Okay, you guys want to start watching some of the prospects for a few minutes? I think it might be a fun exercise here. Some of the recent offers. So let's start. All right, I got to share the screen real quick. We're going to start with Bowe Bentley. All right, so he is from Texas, Salina, Texas. I have no idea where in Texas that is. We're off to a good start. I'm not going to pretend that I do, though. What I do know is he's very productive. He passed for 47 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. He had almost 1,000 rushing yards and an additional 16 touchdowns rushing this past year. So he true dual threat. I don't know who this guy is.
He was saying that Bowe Bentley is him with a capital H.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's something, huh? All right. And for the podcast audience, this isn't great. Audio, I understand. But for the YouTube audience, get to watch a little bit of highlights going along with our breakdown of it here.
Yeah. The thing that stands out with him is his quickness, especially, and his ability to be accurate on the run. I think those are two important things, obviously, when you're looking for a quarterback who's going to run Gus Malzahn's offense, or just what the prototype has been throughout his time coordinating offenses. And the
ability to take off and get
those. For those watching this, the back-to-back clips that just showed, one is him loading up, launching it vertically down the sideline, long throw on the spot, well done. Next one is him taking off and flying with his feet.
Yeah, and he's a guy that's a converted receiver, so there's some built-in athleticism there, and obviously first year as a starting quarterback, so a lot of room to grow. And I think that only speaks to just how impressive it is that he was able to put together. I mean, his team went 16-0 and they won a state championship in his first ever year starting at quarterback. And I think just from digging in on what FSU's planning to do next at quarterback, I think this is a name to definitely keep a close eye on, because I think this is a guy they like a lot. And obviously they only, offered here recently after the Smigiel decommitment, but this is the guy they've had their eyes on for several weeks. And, definitely love his film. So, yeah.
Bo, he's already talking about taking a visit. But Zach caught up with me and Tom Moy. We have a couple stories actually on the side about him. He's already talking about trying to get here for a visit. He just stands out on film as a guy that kind of fits everything they want. The athleticism is really good. The clip that's shown right now is him avoiding a sack and rolling to his left and throwing it vertically down the field. There was another one where off balance, he's rolling right and he throws it, as a guy is progressing down the field towards the sideline. It's really well thrown to the spot. It just seems to fit. And for the record, Salina, Texas, I believe, is near DFW area.
Oh, thank you, Chris, for the clarification.
You're welcome, buddy.
We're going to do Johnny Manziel comps, short white quarterback from Texas? No?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Heisman Trophy. No, he is a lot of fun. I do like the vision for him as a runner. Very cerebral in that regard, very patient, but then quick once he has to. Zach mentioned quickness. Even though just like his twitch as a passer is like very like this quick wind-up throw. Does look like he has like the ball looks big in his hands. So I do wonder what hand size is at quarterback. That's more of a developmental deal than it is a college deal. It's a more NFL level. But no, he's a lot of fun. And mobile, right? And that's going to be the common theme that we see here.
Yeah.
All right. So
just quickly on his recruitment, there's two more local schools that have offered recently, Texas Tech and Oklahoma. I think both are going to get him on campus this month. And just wanted to note like some of the potential competition for FSU with Bowe Bentley.
So Tech, I don't know if they have a quarterback commitment in that class yet. Oklahoma has Jaden O'Neal, who's a guy that's actually been to FSU, got a huge arm. He's committed currently to Oklahoma, has been for a while now.
Yeah. I think he's another guy. Jaden O'Neal's another guy that FSU likes a lot.
Moving on to Landon Duckworth. Quack, 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 Mr. Duckworth from Jackson, Alabama. He will be a 4-year starter by the time it's all said and done. Won a lot of football games.
He's a big kid in person. Like that's what I met him summer of 23. I think it was June of 23. He was a big kid then. I can only imagine as he's continued to physically mature how much bigger he's gotten. But he just has that look of the big stature quarterback who's also a good athlete.
Yeah, look at the arm length when he's not the arm length matters a ton at quarterback, but you can tell he's a well-built athlete.
Long strider on film when he's running, makes yards disappear quickly, pretty decisive what he's going to do, gets the ball out of his hand fast. Yeah.
He's listed 6'3", 190 pounds on 24/7.
He does look taller and lengthier than Bentley did, who was listed at 6'2".
Bentley went to the All-American Bowl, so I presume his measurements are very updated. I don't know what Duckworth has done that has allowed for updated measurements. He may be a guy that last thing they really have is last spring camp season.
So I do notice like the ball is pretty effortless in how he throws it. He doesn't have to really put a ton into being able to push it downfield. Yeah, he is improvising, moving around. He's probably broken 4 tackles and just kind of wings it. There's not like a ton of torque on some of his throws, but he's able to get it downfield with general ease.
That's impressive.
He was trending to UCF during the season last year. I can't recall if he was committed to South Carolina or at one point trending that direction, and that shifted towards UCF.
So both quarterbacks have had clips where they've run someone over too. So again, you're seeing like it's not just ability to run the football; it's able to run it with a little emphasis of physicality, which is nice. Duckworth
told me that Gus Malzahn is who personally offered him the scholarship at FSU, and he said that Malzahn told him that he's going to put the full court press on him from here on out. Other schools involved, Ole Miss, South Carolina, are 2 others that he mentioned. I think he has plans to officially visit both of those schools in June. And he's a guy that said he's going to wait until likely sometime in the summer to make a decision. That's always something to watch because quarterbacks tend to make decisions quicker than any other position. But he's a guy that's kind of been close to a decision before, but obviously coaching changes kind of prevented him from making that. So I think he's going to kind of wait it out and see, what opportunities come and then try to make a decision after taking some OBs in June.
He does some weird things with his technique sometimes, where like the windup is a little elongated. Like the ball doesn't go where you think it's going to go based on where he releases it, but the production is really good.
He makes some really good tight space moves too. Like it's very funny rewatching this, watching him in the pocket, making people miss in very close areas.
Keeps his eyes downfield too.
It's not just outrunning them and beating them to the edge. It's like slight leg movement, step forward, step to the side, while keeping his eyes downfield and making it throw.
His O-line giving me FSU 2024 vibes.
Or the 20, yeah. All right. I was gonna say, or the 2018.
Hey, at least the man's seen some live bullets.
Yeah, he know the ability to navigate being under pressure is important. We saw that firsthand this past season all too well.
So next man up, I presume it's Keisean Henderson.
Yeah, that'll be the last one we show video of.
Yeah, Zach talked about him a good bit earlier. He's just athletic as they come. He's the most athletic of the three, in my opinion. I think Bowe Bentley's probably the one I think is most well-rounded of the three. Duckworth is probably the most intriguing of the three because I think he's a guy that still has major upside to really tap into, as does Keisean Henderson. But I think Duckworth's a guy that can really evolve a great deal in the collegiate game.
With Henderson, it's interesting because him being considered a quarterback prospect was only really a thing like within the last year. And that's why he has the athlete designation on 24/7 Sports. But what he's shown recently, he won we talked about, the Navy All-American Bowl MVP for that game, and was really awesome in practices throughout that week. I mean, he's a guy that's really impressed a lot of evaluators in this offseason circuit as a quarterback prospect.
Good showing at Battle Miami, right?
Yes. No, he was one of the best QBs at that event as well.
Yeah, and he's just intriguing. Like he's super athletic. Now Houston's done a great job there. They were in on the basement level. He's got a really good relationship with that staff. They like him. He likes them. That being said, he's got major heavy hitters pursuing him. He's going to have a lot to think about, but I don't think it's just I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he's just ready to part with Houston. Now, do I think he probably eventually does and he reevaluates things? Most likely. But they've done a really, really good job with him, and he does feel some level of devotion to him. From Zach's interview with him last night, he essentially made it sound like he intends to wait out this period, so not go anywhere this coming week other than maybe Houston. See what he gets, evaluate for the spring. It wouldn't shock me if he maybe puts together a short list of schools he really wants to see in the spring, and as most quarterbacks will do, he'll decide by the end of the summer where home most likely is, unless he makes one of those rare late changes that some guys will make down the stretch. But quarterback dominoes, they just start flying. And when they start going, it's like, oh, well, that school where I wanted to go got theirs, so this is my other school. I'm going to go there. And that changes the elements for other kids, and that just continues to happen. And, I think there was a stretch either this past summer or maybe it was 2 summers ago where we had 14 quarterback commitments in a 3 or 4 day period nationally. And they were all top 50 quarterbacks. So it happens when it happens.
This is the best quarterback of the three.
Yeah, he's making some NFL level throws.
And he does it so effortlessly. And then the athleticism, the long speed. I mean, look at the limbs, he's just going to continue to grow. But how coordinated he is in this really lengthy frame is super impressive. He's quick, he's fast, very, very patient and cerebral in the pocket. He just doesn't panic. Obviously, these are highlights. You're seeing the best of the best, but it just when there's pressure there, this is your dude. This is the guy who, if you can somehow get in the mix for him, this would be the top of the list. And then I would, probably Bowe would be second for me there. Is it Bowe or Bowie? Because he's from Texas, so I had to ask if it's Bowie.
I don't know for sure, but I think it's Bowe Bentley.
All right, and Bowe Bentley probably makes sense. And also a quarterback named Bowe from Texas, I feel like you do need to probably push the chips in a little bit too. So I think Bowe Bentley's probably the more. How would we stack it up, guys? Who do you think is the most realistic of the three? Very, very, very early on here.
I think Duckworth likes Gus a ton. I think Bowe Bentley probably stacks up above him on the board, though.
I would agree.
I think Henderson's probably the longest shot of the three because he's going to be the massive national recruit that he probably should be.
Yeah, agreed with that assessment.
Do we think would they like to take more than one in this cycle? And do we think that's realistic for the guys they're looking at?
I don't. Yeah, in the modern age, I just can't imagine that they would. I mean, I understand the appeal for it, but yeah, I mean, they haven't really tried to do that anytime recently. I mean, they've made attempts at taking two in like a couple cycles ago. It just never really works out. When you're taking guys of that caliber, I mean, it'd have to be a pretty big difference in talent, I would think, between your quarterback 1 and quarterback 2 in the class.
To me, the second is the type of guy that falls through the cracks a bit, who you always like and you feel like you can develop, but it's never the same level as that first guy you're trying to attain.
All right, let's move on to Junior Day. FSU had another one this past weekend. Chris was out there, as he typically is, covering it for us with a little bit of help from Sick Dane, R.I.P. Dane, R.I.P. Dane's toilet bowl, and just R.I.P. Dane in general. Dirty Dane will be back with us soon. Let's see. We want to talk about a few people here who are on campus. I think we'll start off, Chris, with Amari Clemens because he's shown up a couple times now. He's local for Marietta, down I-10. High-end 3-star prospect for us at 24/7 Sports with an 88 grade. There's a guy who keeps showing up, so probably worth starting the conversation with.
Yeah, he's better than that ranking in my opinion, but anyways, I digress. Good relationship with Yak. He showed up for back-to-back weekends. The reason he came back is he wanted to get Mom here. He said Mom had a very good visit, and that was the primary reason. FSU's extremely well-positioned with him. He got a little sheepish when I asked if he had thought about a commitment, but I definitely think they're the top contender there without a shadow of a doubt.
Dane's comp for him, by the way, is Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, let's slow the roll there a little bit.
No, it's not, is it? Did he not learn from the Justin Jefferson?
He was joking. He's like, don't let Brendan see this when you put it on the board. But I think Amari Clemens wears the number 4, and some of the movement stuff is eerily similar to Dalvin, but not close to the prospect that Dalvin was, obviously.
All right, so after running back, I'll mention a few.
Hot take there. Sorry, hot take that Amari Clemens is not the next Dalvin Cook. Zach, thank you for going
just
out.
Wanted to clarify that.
A few pass catchers that made it in. Wide receiver Samarian Wingo from the St. Augustine area, really talented kid. He got a ton of personal attention from Tim Harris Jr. Very important visit. We had a good lengthy update with him. He's a guy that I think they definitely value a great deal. He's just a tall, lanky, athletic pass catcher. If I recall correctly, he played in the state championship out here 2 cycles ago and performed well that season for them, and it continued this past year. A couple younger guys, Jamaron Simmons, local from Godby. He got back. He likes it. They've done a good job positioning themselves well there. He's one of those kids that got offered off a summer 7-on-7 event. Jaden Upshaw, who's from Lee County, which is South Georgia. He's a bigger body. He got offered by Tim Harris Jr. during the visit. He's a physical, athletic, down-the-field pass catcher. He's a kid that I didn't know a ton about. I actually know one of his cousins from a past cycle. And I watched his film and was like, yeah, that dude can play some ball. Really liked him. And the last one I'll mention is Julius Miles, listed as a tight end, could truthfully be a receiver. He's a body that has to develop. He's only about 210 right now. Super productive. Had about 1,000 yards receiving, 10 touchdowns last year. Maybe it was 900 yards receiving. It's 900 to 1,000. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. But just real good pass catcher from Freeport, Florida. He's been here a few times. He was super excited by the offer. Caught up with him on Saturday when he did get offered. He's intriguing because he could physically, height-wise, definitely develop into a tight end, but he's also capable of being a receiver. And I think FSU is not quick to say is one or the other. They view him as a pass catcher and they'll see how he physically develops. You want to throw anything there, Zach?
Yeah. Sorry. I didn't know if you were going to go into any of the other O-line stuff. No, but on defense, a couple of guys of note, 2 at the linebacker spot. TJ White is a guy that FSU kind of told on the visit he could play, all over within their, linebacker spots. So either one of the traditional linebacker spots or potentially the jack linebacker position because, he's shown the ability to be a really quality edge rusher.
Yeah, that's what he does a lot for his high school. I think he's a guy in the spring. The high school intends supposedly to play him more in space, and I think he could really, really blow up if he's effective at that. FSU believes he can be effective at that.
A side
Yeah.
note with that is that they've are referring to some players or some recruits as Jack
Yeah,
linebacker. We weren't
Tristan.
sure that was going to be a thing in this iteration of the Tony White defense.
So Jack, I think it's Jack Potenza, who's on the staff, I believe introduces himself as, "Hi, I'm Jack. I coach the Jacks." So
yeah, that's the hybrid position. We weren't
an example of that.
We weren't
Trenton
sure.
Henderson, who was here 2 weekends ago, probably could do that, but he could play other spots. Tristan Givens, who was in this weekend, who we have not yet been able to catch up with, but is a big-time target for them. He is a guy that definitely could play Jack, and I think they view him wholeheartedly as a Jack. TJ White's probably capable of playing multiple spots. But yeah, he definitely can line up as a rush end. He shows that a lot on his film currently.
Yeah, I think with the defense, it's largely just going to be based on what the personnel looks like on the roster right now. I think ideally they want to get some of those body types in that can be, Jack linebackers, but they don't have a lot of those guys on the roster right now. I guess that would be the ideal fit for that spot because they haven't really recruited to that position before with, the change of defensive scheme. So, but yeah, I mean, it looks like in the future they'd like to add some of those types of players to their defense. And then quickly, Noah Lavalley, the younger brother of Caleb Lavalley, I like his film a lot. He's a guy that is unranked on 24/7 Sports, but he's a 26 linebacker out of the state of Georgia who is a really physical player and moves pretty well for being a somewhat bigger dude, and like the visit a lot. I think that he's one of the guys that FSU's targeting at the linebacker spot. I wouldn't call him a top target at this point, but I could see a point where he'd move up the board. I think Georgia Tech and North Carolina are his other offers, and I think Ole Miss is also kind of in the in the mix there.
On Noah, one thing to add, they're recruiting him individually. Like, yeah, he's Caleb's brother. That helps get him down here. The family's going to be here, but they're recruiting him as Noah, not as Caleb's brother. And I think there's a certain level of appreciation from him and his family that's how they're treating the recruitment. On the tiers that Zach mentioned at linebacker, I agree with him. I think Noah, and truthfully probably TJ White, he's probably just at the cusp of first to second tier. They're kind of those second tiers. That first tier is a guy like Xavier Griffin, who was in last weekend, or Tyler Atkinson, who they need to get back in, but they actually met with last week, and I heard it went really well. And truthfully, Atkinson fits the change in system probably better than the previous system here. But that's an expensive one. You got to get him back on campus. But yeah, I think there's a bit of a tier system right now at linebacker, but they do like guys like TJ and Noah a lot.
Yeah, and the last guy we'll talk about is Chauncey Chuck Kennan out of the Sarasota area. He was probably the top talent on campus for the junior day. He's the number 1 ranked corner in the country in the 26 class by 247, listed 6'2", 170 pounds at Booker High School over in Sarasota. Got every offer that you could think of, but FSU is making a strong early impression with him. I spoke to him exclusively on Noles 24/7, and he told me that he locked in an OV to FSU for June. I think it's June 13th through the 16th is what he told me. And he's also got trips set up to Miami and Georgia for that month. Florida is another school involved with him. But yeah, I mean, he mentioned how, he's a big fan of Pat Surtain and Mike Norvell and Greg Moss and all the coaches on that staff. And, I think, he's obviously a huge target for them in this class.
Pat Surtain and Coach Moss were both very heavily attached to him and made him a priority. It's interesting to watch when there's 40, 50 kids on campus, the guys that the coaches truly gravitate to and attach themselves to, because they're trying to give attention to everyone, but you can tell the ones who are the dudes for them. Real quick footnote: about a dozen offensive linemen on campus again this weekend. They've been very good, dating back to that December day of getting O linemen in here. Chancellor Campbell is a kid who's kind of like Chasten Brown in the sense of frame, but he's probably ahead of Chasten, certainly ahead of Chasten as a junior. He's a guy that I really like, just seeing him physically, what he looked like. A couple good young ones, Sean Tatum, who's a kid that I love, kind of looks like a baby Darius Washington when you first see him. He camped here last year, was really good. He's continuing to physically develop the way he wanted to happen. His teammate, Charlie Pisani, 2028 kid, got offered during the weekend, and he's got a real shot. They're both John Carroll kids down there in Fort Pierce. Impressive players, but Herb Hand and that O-line staff has done a really good job of consistently just getting a lot of type of bodies you want to see on campus at that position here. and there's been a lot for multiple classes. So all in all, it was a good junior day. It wasn't to the same level as the prior week. They are expected to have another one this coming weekend. I think right now we have roughly 15 or so names up on the site for this weekend. We'll continue to build that out throughout the week.
Well said, Chris. Well said. Last thing before we get out of here, Chris is about to go back to his favorite place in the world, the bench. We will have newcomer availability starting this week, Tuesday, I believe. Thomas Castellanos will headline the group. Yeah, I got it in front of me here. So Tuesday afternoon, we'll get Castellanos, Luke Pettibon, Squirrel White. Then we'll get some defensive transfers on Thursday, and it'll kind of be a Tuesday-Thursday deal for like the next month or so. So we'll be at the More a lot coming up here for the next month, and we'll get newcomer availability, write some stories off of it, all that good stuff. So, all right, want to get out of here, guys? You good?
Yep. Thank you to Chattanooga Whiskey and the Turner Group. Didn't give them as much love as we usually do, but got to make sure we give them a shout out here.
Drink Chattanooga whiskey and get drunk and buy a house through the Turner Group. Peace.